My true story. From California, I visited my millionaire daughter just to say hello, but when the door opened, I froze. She didn't expect me to see that. The oranges were still warm from the sun when I picked them. I had chosen the ripest ones, each round and golden, just like I used to when she was a little girl. Back then, she loved the way I peeled them in a spiral, always saving the last piece for her to eat in one bite. I thought, foolish that she might still remember, that a part of her, somewhere beneath the makeup and magazine covers, still had room for her mother. Her house was massive, $10 million of white stone and glass, with a gate that buzzed before it opened. I had to walk up the driveway slowly, gripping the bag of oranges, afraid the security camera would flash red and deny me entry. But it did not. Not that day. I rang the bell. I waited, and when the door opened, I froze. She looked like a painting. Not my daughter, no, not the girl I raised on food stamps and bedtime stories, but someone else entirely. She wore a white blazer, perfectly tailored. Her lips were painted a shade of crimson that made her look like she had never known hunger. Her eyes, my eyes, looked at me with a fear so quick it passed in a blink, replaced instantly by something sharper. Contempt. "What are you doing here?" she hissed, her voice low, urgent, panicked. "Why didn't you call first? You can't be here." I opened my mouth to answer, but she did not give me the chance. Her tone sliced through me before I could even offer the oranges. "Are you trying to ruin my career?" she snapped. "Do you know who I'm meeting today? The press is inside, investors, people who think I came from nothing, people who believe my mother died when I was 6. I stared at her. "What?" She crossed her arms. "Do not look at me like that. You know what this is. You're not part of my story anymore. You're a liability." A liability. That was the word she used. Not mother, not visitor, not even mistake. A liability. Then she leaned in, her voice trembling, not with sadness, but with rage. "Do not call me your daughter. I am the product of drive, of ambition. You were a biological accident I clawed my way out of." I did not drop the bag. Not yet. My hands were steady, weathered by years of scrubbing hospital floors and planting vegetables no one else wanted. I stood there, quiet, holding on to the only offering I had brought. That was when she shoved me. I had not expected it, not from her, not in front of that pristine entryway, but she pushed me, hard, her palm flat against my shoulder, like swatting away a ghost that had overstayed its welcome. I fell backward, stumbled down the smooth stone steps, and landed hard on the edge of the walkway. The bag of oranges tore open. They spilled across the ground, bouncing one by one down the slope. Some rolled into the street. Others cracked open, their juice darkening the concrete. She did not move to help me. Instead, she glanced back over her shoulder, worried not about me, but about whether anyone inside had seen. I looked up. My elbow ached. My knees throbbed from the fall. But I looked up, and I saw her face, calculated, cold. Then she gave a small, dismissive laugh, like I was some inconvenient insect. And with that, she slammed the door shut. Behind that door, I heard it, the return of her voice, bright and cheerful now, as if nothing had happened. The laugh she gave the press, the polite compliments, the clinking of champagne glasses. Across the street, an old neighbor peeked through the blinds. She paused there, uncertain, watching me from behind the glass. Maybe she remembered me. Maybe she just saw a woman too old and too bruised to be standing alone. I stood up slowly. My hip would be sore later. I gathered the torn paper bag, ignoring the fruit. Let it rot here, I thought. Let her watch it from the windows and wonder if it smelled of memory. I did not knock again. I did not scream. I did not cry. But I walked away knowing one thing. That woman behind the door was not my daughter. She was something else, and I had just met her for the first time. The door had slammed in my face, but I had not moved. I was still on the steps when I saw the brass handle turn again. The door creaked open just a little, as if the house was exhaling. She didn't see me. I was off to the side, one step down, behind the stone column near the shrubs. But I saw everything. A woman stepped forward, white hair, soft, grandmotherly eyes. She wore a delicate shawl draped over her shoulders and pearl earrings that caught the light. She looked gentle, fragile even, the kind of woman strangers call darling at the grocery store. She was holding my daughter's hand, and then I heard her say it. "This is my mother," my daughter announced to the group of reporters standing just beyond the foyer. I froze. "She lost everything to raise me," she continued. "I was in and out of foster care, but she never gave up. She worked 3 jobs just to send me to school, and when I was accepted into Stanford, she sold her wedding ring to buy my plane ticket." The cameras clicked. The crowd murmured. I could see someone wiping their eyes, and I stood outside, invisible. No, worse than invisible. Replaced. That woman, the one with the warm expression and trembling hands, she smiled and gave a shy nod to the cameras. "I always believed in her," she said, squeezing my daughter's hand. "Even when the world didn't." I felt my chest tighten. My legs wanted to give out from under me. I knew this performance. I had lived it for real, but now someone else was acting it out on a grander stage for people who would never know the difference. My daughter turned to the cameras again. "She's why I created Healing from Nothing," she said, her voice breaking slightly, "because I know what it's like to start life without a safety net. And I know how powerful it is when someone gives you love you didn't earn." The woman dabbed her eyes with a tissue. She earned everything. They hugged, and I stood there, shaking. That was my life they were reenacting. My sacrifice. My struggle. I was the one who mopped blood off hospital floors during night shifts to pay for her textbooks. I was the one who stitched her school uniforms with calloused fingers and heat rashes from working the laundry boiler in July. I was the one who loved her, fiercely and quietly, without a stage or audience. But it was not me in that house. She had told them I died. At 6 years old. 6. That was the year she fell off the monkey bars and cracked her wrist. I slept in the hospital chair 2 nights in a row because she was afraid of being alone. I still remember how she cried when they cut her favorite sleeve to make room for the cast. I promised I would sew her a new one, and I did. But none of that mattered now. She had rewritten history and killed me in the process. And worst of all, she had replaced me with a better version. A gentler face, a softer voice, a more camera-friendly kind of love. Someone who could say all the right things without the rawness. Someone who never had to yell at her to study, or cry in the bathroom when the rent check bounced, or slap her own hand for scraping leftovers off hospital trays just to feed her kid. That woman didn't earn the right to be called mother, but she got it anyway. And I who carried that girl inside me for 9 months, who tore my body apart to bring her into this world, I was edited out of the story like a typo. I backed away slowly before the door shut again. I did not want them to see me, not her, not the photographers, not that actress pretending to be what I am. She would not have the decency to look ashamed. I walked back to the sidewalk. My legs shook. My palms stung from the fall earlier, but I barely felt it. Inside that house, they poured wine and clinked glasses. My daughter had the world believing she rose from ashes. But those ashes? They were me. I did not go home right away. I wandered. I sat at a bus stop with the broken plastic bench and watched strangers rush past. Mothers tugging their kids' backpacks, grandmothers helping toddlers with shoelaces. Life, all around me, as if I were the one who had died. When I finally returned to my little house, I turned on the television. There she was again, my daughter. On a morning talk show, sitting on a white couch next to that same woman. The screen read, "From foster care to fortune, the power of a mother's love." The host leaned forward, hands clasped. "So your mother returned after all these years?" My daughter nodded solemnly. "She found me just before I gave up hope. I always knew, somewhere deep down, that she would come back." The woman beside her squeezed her hand. I stared at the screen. I thought about the letter she had written me on her 17th birthday, the one I kept in a tin box under my bed. "You're the reason I'm not afraid of the dark," she had written. "You're my roots, Mom." And now she said I was dead and loved another? That night, I sat alone in the kitchen, watching the fruit flies circle the ruined oranges. I had brought them as a peace offering, a memory, a mother's gesture. But now I understood. She did not want peace. She wanted profit. She did not just erase me, she sold my story to someone else. And the most painful part wasn't that she lied. It was that she gave my love, the very love she had rejected, to a stranger and made it beautiful, palatable, photogenic. She had finally embraced motherhood, just not mine. I did not confront her, not yet. There was a difference between pain and proof. I had all the pain, but I needed the proof, so I hired someone. A quiet man named Will, retired from law enforcement, now working private surveillance for those who needed eyes in rooms they could no longer enter. I paid him from my pension fund, the one I had built cleaning hospital bathrooms for 2 decades. The irony stung, but not as much as her betrayal. He began with public events, galas, fundraisers, book signings. He wore suits, he posed as a photographer, and he sent me pictures. There she was, my daughter, smiling, holding hands with the silver-hailed woman they all now called her mother. But Will dug deeper. One Tuesday morning, he knocked on my door and laid down a file. Her name was not listed in any foster system. She had never adopted, never applied to be a caregiver. She had no children. Not anymore, because she lost hers to poverty. Before she became an inspiration, she was a mannequin at a theme park, paid by the hour to stand still and smile. Her real name was Margaret T. Ellis. She filed bankruptcy twice, lived in a mobile home, had a son who died in a group home from untreated asthma, and now she played the part of the loving mother of a millionaire. I stared at the photos. One in particular caught my eye. She was sitting in a green room chair, her makeup half applied, staring at her reflection, not smiling, not sad, just empty. I kept staring. There was something in her eyes that looked familiar. I asked Will to find her, and he did. 3 days later, I waited in the shade of a small cafe near Pasadena, behind sunglasses and a wide-brimmed hat. My heart pounded like I was going into battle. She arrived on time. Margaret was thinner than she appeared on screen, frailer. Her hands shook slightly when she lifted her iced tea. She wore a sweater despite the heat. She recognized me instantly. "You're her real mother," she said. "No pretense, no act." I nodded. She looked down. "I figured you'd come one day." "I just have one question," I said. "Do you have children?" Her eyes welled up instantly, and this time there were no cameras to catch it. "I did," she whispered. "A boy. Levi. He was 9 when he died." Silence stretched between us like an old rope bridge. "I lost him because I was poor," she said, "not because I didn't love him. And when your daughter offered me this role, I thought, just once, I'd like to be called Mom again." I could not hate her. I had hated her on screen when she hugged my child and wore my memories like pearls. But here, in the heat and honesty of the afternoon, I saw her for what she was. Not a thief, but a ghost. Just like me. "I don't blame you," I said quietly. "You're not the one who threw me away." She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "She told me you left," she whispered. "That you died in prison, that she was alone." I shook my head. "I was never gone. I never left her. She just needed a better story." Neither of us spoke for a while. When we parted, she squeezed my hand. Not in apology, not in guilt, but in recognition. That night, I went home and opened the folder I had not touched in years. Clippings. Receipts. A letter from the bank showing I had co-signed her student loans. A grainy photo of me standing outside her dorm, holding a care package. And then I called someone. His name was Dan Nguyen, a small-time journalist with a big voice. He once published an expose about my daughter, accusing her of plagiarizing her TED Talk from a lesser-known speaker. She had sued him, silenced him. But I remembered his article. He was not afraid. So I called, and when he picked up, I said, "You don't know me, but I'm the woman your story was about. I'm her mother." He paused. Then, "The dead one?" I smiled, even though it hurt. Not anymore. I went home quietly. There was no dramatic music, no confrontation at the gates, just me and the dust of years settling on my skin. I locked the door behind me, pulled the curtains closed, and stood in the middle of my small living room. Then I walked to the back bedroom. Under my bed was a rusted tin box, scratched, bent in one corner. It used to hold cookies when I worked the night shift at the hospital. A cheap brand, always stale by the time I had 5 minutes to eat. I had kept the box after all those years because it became something else. A vault, a place to store the things I could not afford to forget. I sat on the floor and pulled it out. The lid creaked, and there it was. the truth. Not in contracts or emails, but in ink, in cloth.